right, hello friends, and welcome back to Talking Sports at Work. Today is the 1st of July. It is Monday. It has been, almost 3 weeks since our last episode. I think we've done some YouTube stuff, at least one or two since then, but my first podcast and yeah, over 2 weeks now. So it's good to be back. And one of the reasons why I have not been doing it is just because it's the dog days of baseball season right now. Basketball's done. Football's still got a while before it starts, ramping up. And this is just not a good time for a sports fan like me to have a sports podcast. As hard as I try, sometimes I just don't care about baseball. Now, I did get really, really into the Vols baseball this season for the first time. I've never cared about college baseball. Even though the Vols have been hot for the last few years, I really didn't pay that much attention, except maybe a handful of games until this season. I started watching them in the Super Regionals, and I'm very, very glad that I did because that was so much fun. My kids enjoyed watching it with me. The Vols win the national championship, which that just feels wonderful to say, and we don't even have to worry about the sport. But the Vols are national champion. Tennessee Volunteers national champions. I can say that all day long. That was fun to watch. I love Tony Vitello. I already knew I really liked him, just from the little bit that I had seen of him over the last few years. But, now that's even more so. I love that dude. Anyway, today we've got some actual stuff to talk about. NBA free agency officially began yesterday, and normally by this point there's more excitement, but I think you could tell going into this free agent group that this one wasn't going to be quite as exciting as maybe some others, just because there weren't that many big name free agents out there. There weren't not a lot of talent somehow in this free agent pool. Plus, with all the new salary cap rules, basketball offseason stuff is already just absurdly complicated, and now it's even more so with the new aprons and soft cap, hard cap, whatever their salary cap situation is now. Something just popped up on my friggin' podcast app. But anyway, so we do have some things to talk about. It's mostly going to be basketball related. I'm sure somehow I'll find my way into football. I always do. But, give you guys maybe some updates on what's been going on with us for the last 2.5 weeks. And, well, no, I guess it's been almost 3 weeks. Yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter. But, hope everyone's doing great. I'm going to take a quick break and we will talk about some stuff. Okie dokie, friends, welcome back. So, we had a little bit of movement yesterday and last night, and now a little bit more this morning in terms of free agency. And Paul George was the big name out there, really, and which goes to show the lack of star power and really and game-changing, team-changing talent that was available this offseason. Like, I really it's not often that there's this little available in an NBA free agency, it feels like to me. And now I like Paul George, don't get me wrong, but I think he's 34 now. His 4 or 5 years in LA were just a total bust, but that was mostly because of Kawhi more than him, who just could not stay healthy. And, now he's in a situation where he can definitely still help a team win. But, he's probably only got another year or two left of being a really, really effective, good, complementary number 2, number 3 player on a contending team. And he's going to a great situation, I think, for that. He's going to the Philadelphia 76ers. And I think he will fit in very well there. I think he will be a great complement to what they have with Embiid and Maxey and the role players around them. I really, really like this addition for the 76ers. Now, Paul George is the kind of guy that, I mean, really, you could put him on just about any team and he's going to make them better. But I think this makes Philadelphia definitively the second best team in the East right now. And I was listening to some talk radio this morning, and of course, they're all still high on the Knicks. I am not. I think that this is basically the same sort of thing that we see out of Tom Thibodeau teams so frequently. They play hard. They'll have maybe one star who's like a borderline superstar. It was Jimmy Butler there for a while when they were in was it Chicago or Minnesota, wherever they were. Actually, I think they were together twice. But they might have this one guy who's like the superstar, and he's a grinder, but he's not quite MVP caliber superstar. That's we know who that is for the Knicks now. But they have everybody plays really hard. They play great defense. They play themselves into the ground in the regular season, and then they come up short in the playoffs. That's just what Tom Thibodeau teams do. Excuse me. Now, I think it's the exact same thing that we're seeing with the Knicks, and I don't know why people are going to keep thinking that somehow this formula is going to lead to a championship. It's not. It's just not. I mean, you're not going to beat Boston, and now you're not going to beat Philadelphia without having just more star talent and maybe even doing things a little bit more what's now become traditional with a little bit of load management and not running your guys into the ground throughout the regular season. But that's the Tom Thibodeau way. Anyway, that's going to lead me down a whole other road. And just really quickly, the reason it frustrates me, it's because of the New York media bias, and I mean, it's not even something that I like blame these people for. It's just the way it is. But anytime it's just like last offseason, the Jets were going to win the Super Bowl. Now the Knicks are one of the best teams in the NBA. If the Mets are ever good, it's always if any of these New York teams are even relatively good or seem like they might be on the rise, everybody loses their mind. And that's because so many of these sports shows are either based in New York or so many of the people involved, the producers, the executives, the writers, the talent, the on-air talent, so many of these people are from New York. And that's just the way it is. So you're going to get a lot of bias, and these teams are going to get way overcovered compared to how good they actually are. Last offseason is maybe the most glaring example you could ever have in terms of, last football offseason with all the ridiculous hype around the Jets. When I said even going into that season, even if Aaron Rodgers had stayed healthy, they were only the second best team in that division, maybe even the third, with an ascending Miami team. But even if he would have stayed healthy, I still feel like they were only a wild card team. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. The point is, and it's not so much maybe that way with like the Giants because they have a higher expectation. The Yankees have a higher expectation. The bar for those two teams are higher than it is for the others. But when the Mets are relatively good, when the Jets are relatively good, when the Knicks are relatively good, everybody just goes nuts. And so anyway, that's what's happening with the Knicks. And I've heard it now already in the last couple of days on multiple stations and multiple sources and shows and things about, how the Knicks are still going to be the second best team because, people thought that Paul George was going to sign, it looked like he was going to Philadelphia even before it became official. But no, I don't think so. I think the Knicks are probably the third best team in the East. I do not think Mikal Bridges was nearly worth they gave up 5 first-round picks for him in addition to some other stuff as well. I can't even remember what all it included, but they gave up like superstar MVP-ish level, superstar level trade bounty for this dude. He is not worth all that. Now, you could argue that maybe for the Knicks, given their situation, given their coach, given the the New York Villanova squad that they're building, that maybe he was more valuable to them, and just in a vacuum, no, he's not worth that, but maybe to the Knicks he was. I still don't think so. I still think that was insane when I read what they gave up for him, to get him. He does not make them that much better. He might make them a little better. He's going to obviously have some great chemistry with the other big players, big time players on the team, namely Brunson and Hart. And who's the other one? There's another Villanova guy. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But anyway, I think now with the addition of Paul George, and already, I would not have said that the Knicks were definitively better than the Sixers or even necessarily Milwaukee. I think if people might be going to sleep on Milwaukee a little bit because they're not doing much this offseason. They've still got one of the best players in the game, and they added Damian Lillard. Now, that didn't work as well as they'd hoped, but they've still, I think now in the second year, I expect it to be better. And they've still got Chris Middleton. That Milwaukee team is not somebody you want to just forget about. So I think there are still three teams that can contend with Boston potentially in the East. Boston, I think, still is going to be clearly number one, but I think Philadelphia got a lot closer to them now. And assuming everyone stays relatively healthy, that big three, which I think we're going to start seeing less big threes in the league with the new salary cap system. But the Sixers have it. They have a big three now with Embiid, Paul George, and Maxey, which Maxey just a few minutes ago, like right before I started this episode, they announced he signed a max deal, a rookie max deal, I guess, as well. So now they've got him on a max contract, Paul George on a max contract, and Embiid on a max contract, and that's sort of we've seen that a lot. That's kind of been the template, I guess, for competing teams over the last several years. But with these new salary cap rules, I don't know how much talent they're going to be able to put around them. Now, they did work things out really well in the salary cap, whereas Philadelphia, I think, had the most cap space going into this offseason already. So they should be okay at least for the next couple of years, and that's the window that they're going to be going for. Paul George has really probably only got another year or two of really playing at a very high level, and that's the window. So I think they're now the second best team in the East, and I definitely think that they are this is gonna be interesting. It's gonna be really interesting, really fun to see how things play out. Maxey is still ascending, still getting better. He's already incredibly exciting, fun player to watch. But anyway, I'm just also going to say I do not understand NBA offseason stuff. So do not consider me in any sort of expert when it comes to contract analysis or trade analysis in basketball. In the NFL, I know that shit. I'm well versed, and I think I've talked about this before as well. I've always enjoyed off-season stuff, the draft in particular, as well as free agency and trades. I enjoy that almost as much as I do the regular season. And I think that's because of two reasons. One's because I always play franchise mode on Madden. I play that far more than I play any other mode or any other video game, really. And so, that's the stuff I really have fun with, is toying with building the roster. But also, I think when you're a fan of a team that's often in some level of rebuild mode and not usually that, a top tier competitive Super Bowl contending team, I think you get to where you get to where you're more into that stuff because you're always seeing how your team is going to rebuild. And the Titans for years now have really been mostly in some stage of a rebuilding phase, it felt like. So anyway, so I'm pretty well versed and understand most of NFL contracts, NFL trades, NFL draft stuff. I don't in the NBA. And now part of me has wondered, is it just because I don't know that stuff as well? Like, I'm not nearly as much of a basketball fan, but no, I think it's just that shit is way, way, way more complicated. Like with the pick swaps and the trade exceptions and the two-way contracts, and now they've got two aprons in the salary cap, and I don't understand what any of that means. It's just so overly complex. And maybe that's part of the because NBA contracts are actual contracts where one party can't just get out of it. NFL contracts, I don't even consider real contracts, because how is it a contract if one of the parties can just say, we don't want to honor this anymore and cut a guy? That's not a contract. That's essentially a right to work thing. So anything beyond the guaranteed money on a contract in the NFL is not part of the contract, I don't think. I mean, well, that's a whole other thing. But, in the NBA, the contracts are contracts. Both sides honor their, what they've agreed to. The player honors his agreement to play for this team. The team agrees to pay the player the amount that's in the contract. Now, there are, and maybe so that's partly why maybe the other elements of it are so complicated. I don't know. But man, this stuff is just so, like, I was trying to read about the Mikal Bridges trade, and just that one trade, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what does this stuff even mean? Like, I get, okay, they're giving up this many first round picks. I get that. They're giving up this player. I get that. But then it becomes pick swaps, and it becomes the right to swap, and it's, the higher of whatever pick this is, and whoever has the higher pick, they'll take that, and just so much stuff. I also don't understand what trade exemption stuff is. I'd like somebody to explain this to me, really. I mean, honestly, I don't know that I care that much. I could find out this stuff. It wouldn't be that hard to just, do some research on it. But I guess I don't really care that much. And I don't play, franchise mode or whatever it's called on the NBA game on 2K. So, I have played it before, but it's not like something I do a lot. But yeah, like, I don't get the two-way contracts, the three-way trades. I mean, the three-way trades are a little bit more straightforward, but the elements of them become so complicated with all the swaps, and because in the NBA, everybody has picks that belong to somebody else that came from somewhere else, and they have the right to swap it, and it's just so crazy, so much stuff. And I also don't get, like, what what's going on with Klay Thompson right now. From what I understood, I thought he was going to be an unrestricted free agent. But apparently, the Warriors are trying to work out a sign and trade deal. I also don't understand that. Unless it's a restricted free agent, I don't know how that makes any sense. Because why wouldn't the guy just go and sign with his new team? Why would he sign with this one and then make the team give up something for him? Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is a restricted free agent. I don't know. I mean, I would be surprised a player of his caliber would have like a team option at the end, but I don't know. Maybe that's the case. But I don't understand that stuff either. But anyway, that's my oh crap, something's happening here. That's my analysis on. Alrighty, hey friends, I guess that was as good a stopping point as any, because I was kind of wrapping up that segment. But yeah, I think Paul George does make a significant impact and does make the Sixers a good bit better, enough to where they are now a legitimate threat to Boston. I still think Boston, Boston is just that team. That team belongs in the West. They're so good, basically. I mean, they are, yeah, they're just still a level above everybody. And as far as I know, they aren't making any moves this offseason. I think they're any significant moves. I think they've got a couple free agents like Xavier Tillman maybe or something, but I don't think, like, I think they're still going to try to keep. I thought Derek White was going to be a free agent after this season, but I guess not, because I haven't heard anything about that. I think they're just going to try to, keep this team together as it is constructed, as they should, and, run it back next year. But yeah, so that's my analysis, I guess, of the East. And then in the West, there's really not been that much happening yet. I mean, it's really been everybody's kind of waited to see where Paul George and Klay Thompson were going to land, I guess, and then the ball would really get rolling on everything else. Chris Paul signed with the Spurs, which was surprising. And I heard them talking about this on the radio, and they were echoing exactly what I had already been thinking about this when I first read it last night, which was, that's a really good move for the Spurs. He will be a really good addition for that young team. Somebody who can run the offense, is, the best pure, traditional point guard of the last couple decades, probably. Um, and somebody who can really help be a leader, help teach the young guys and help them grow. And yeah, but for Chris Paul, it didn't make a ton of sense. Like, it made a ton of sense that the team would add him, but not so much for him, because it feels like he would be, still trying to chase a championship. He's almost 40 now. And so it felt like, he would try to be, knowing that this is probably going to be his last contract, that he would be trying to go somewhere where they're a legitimate contender, and the Spurs are still not that. Now, they are going to be a good bit better this next year. I do believe they are definitely ascending, and I think they might be a fringe playoff team, maybe a play-in team this season, but they're not, they're not close to being a contender yet. So it was, I guess, maybe just Chris Paul's kind of given up on the whole idea of chasing a ring, and maybe now he just wants to go and help develop these guys. Maybe he wants to get into coaching. I mean, that would make some sense if, he's wanting to get into coaching. Go play for go play for Greg Popovich, and, go ahead and start being a coach on the floor to this young team. I don't know. Or maybe the market for him among the contending teams was not quite much at all. That's a possibility. But yeah, so Chris Paul's going to San Antonio. Paul George is going to Philadelphia. Klay Thompson, we still don't know. The Lakers really want him. I don't know why. I've said I really hope, I mean, as soon as all this talk started, which has been going on for a while, I've been saying that I really hope the Lakers don't give up too much, especially in some sort of sign and trade, or even commit a lot of money to basically the shell that used to be Klay Thompson. I mean, this dude has not been nearly what he used to be for a couple years now, at least. I mean, he can still shoot, because that's something that, it's not based on athleticism, and older guys, I think, can still be effective shooters. But the reason Klay Thompson was such a great part of those championship teams wasn't just the fact that he was one of the best shooters in the league. It was also the fact that he was an elite defender. He could defend the best wing player, the best two guard, the best point guard. It didn't matter. He could defend the best non-big on the opposing team at an elite level. He can't do that anymore. So, I mean, if the biggest reasons why he was such a great player are because of two things, his shooting and his defense, and one of those things he can't do anymore, then he's not a great player anymore. And plus, hell, he wasn't even shooting well at all towards the end of last season, and their short postseason run. So I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's pretty much, and maybe it's just because there wasn't that much else out there, and LeBron knows that his window is closing, that maybe he's just saying, he's looks like the second best player on the market, and we want him. I don't know. But I was really hoping that the Lakers might be able to somehow make Paul George work. But I don't know. There was it never seemed like the talk or the momentum really heated up for that. It seemed like, it's been since yesterday, even before the official start, it's been, the Lakers want Klay Thompson. I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know that there's much the Lakers could do anyway that would really help them. I mean, first of all, I can't believe I'm just now saying this, but freak, Dalton Connect is a Laker. I mean, how wonderful is that? And fans of the show and friends of people who know me will know that when it comes to football or other sports, I'm very much a homer. But in basketball, my fandom is kind of split between the Lakers because I grew up a huge Kobe Bryant fan, and the Memphis Grizzlies because they are a Tennessee based team. And, it's really kind of 50-50 maybe. And in the draft, the Lakers did something to make me go even deeper into Laker fandom, and the Grizzlies did the complete opposite and made me do something that and did something that just totally turned me off. I mean, that was too high to draft Zach Edey, first of all, and yet you draft that dude who's just God, Purdue just breaks our hearts so often, it feels like, and they did it again last year. And I know that they're not actually drafting with this stuff in mind, but I still think that was probably too high for him. And Dalton Connect was sitting right there on the board. I can't believe he fell as far as he did. And apparently it was because of his age, which, I can get that. But man, the Lakers got an absolute steal there. And they still managed to grab Bronny, which we know they wanted to do late in the second round. So the Lakers had an outstanding draft. But, how impactful are both of those guys going to be right away? I think Dalton Connect will be impactful right away. I think he'll be able to come in and, start off as sort of a role player, maybe, spelling Austin Reeves. But he, by the end of next season, could very well be a starter on that team. But the Lakers are just in this position now where, I mean, how good can we really expect them to be? LeBron, there's no reason to believe that he's not still going to be averaging 25, 9, and 8 or something. Anthony Davis, as long as he stays healthy, we know is still going to be mostly great. D'Angelo Russell has been good. Austin Reeves is good. I think Dalton Connect will have an impact pretty quickly, but I don't know how much of an impact it will be. Bronny, who knows what to expect from him. And then if they add Klay Thompson, it's like that doesn't really help that much. I mean, I don't know. But we know that LeBron opted out of his contract, and it was apparently to help the team. So I don't know if he's planning on signing for the veteran minimum or just, signing some back end loaded contract or what. But he's clearly still planning. He's not planning on going anywhere. But yeah, so the Lakers, I mean, I don't, outside of, for Tennessee fans who are also Laker fans, which there actually, it seems like are a lot of us. I mean, I know my cousins the same way. And I've talked to a lot of other people around here who are Laker fans. So outside of, for us having Dalton Connect on the team, there's really not that much to be positive or optimistic or excited about with the Lakers. There's no reason to think they're going to be much better than last year. But I do think Dalton Connect could be Rookie of the Year, and maybe that's biased, but he was the best player in college basketball last year. Zach Edey won the award again, but he's not going to be that in the NBA. Obviously, Dalton Connect's skills do translate. So yeah, and I don't know what to expect from the French guys. I mean, I don't watch G League, I don't watch French basketball. Who cares? But we'll see. I mean, I'm sure that both Sarr and the other one are super talented, and yeah, we'll see what to expect from them. So anyway, and then the Grizzlies, I don't know that there's any. Well, actually, there is reason to be excited about the Grizzlies. There's one reason, and he wears number 12, and he should be back and hopefully have his mind right. We haven't heard any more drama. We haven't seen any more social media. We haven't heard any more gun stuff. So there's reason to believe that Ja will be back, will have his head straight, and when he is on the court, he is one of the best players in the game. And if Edey can contribute, I mean, I think he will be a contributor. He can be a good rim protector. He can be a good scorer down low, but he's certainly not the modern sort of stretch five. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. I don't know what they're going to do with Marcus Smart. I heard that they were looking to trade him. I thought that was a bad trade from the beginning when they made the deal. I didn't understand it. I thought they should not have given. They should have just given Tyus Jones a contract to keep him there, and then you'd still be able to add other pieces. But instead, they gave up Jones and excuse me, other pieces for Marcus Smart. I did not think that was a good trade at all. But, here they are now. So I don't even know if I watched a game with him in a Grizzlies uniform last year, honestly, because I knew there was no point. Without Ja there, they're not going to be a contender. But he's going to be back. We'll see what happens with Marcus Smart. We'll see what happens with Zach Edey, Triple J's, whatever his name is. There's Triple J on the Vols, there used to be Josiah Jordan James. And then there's, I guess, Double J. What's his name? I can't even remember his name. Friggin' Defensive Player of the Year 2 years ago for the Grizzlies. Well, that's embarrassing. Good Lord. Anyway, the JJ guy. He's still going to be good and will be more effective now having the super offensive weapon that is Ja back. Excuse me. So there's really more reason probably to be positive about the Grizzlies than the Lakers, because they're getting a more impactful player added than from last year, having Ja Morant back. But the Lakers, there is reason to be optimistic, and really it's all about Dalton Connect. And then we'll see if they add Klay Thompson. We'll see if he's still able to muster anything of what he was a few years ago, and go from there. But, there's my basketball analysis. Really, there hasn't been that much happening yet in free agency. Again, it's kind of a lower level free agency class compared to what we're used to seeing. So, yeah. But anyway, I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'll be back, and we'll finish things up. Alrighty, friends. So there is one more thing to be excited about, mindful of, I guess, coming up in July, sports-wise, and that is something that I have been waiting years and years for, and that is the return of NCAA football. I think it's EA College Football now. They got rid of the NCAA name, but, I mean, everyone is talking about it. I'm glad that it's as big of a deal, it seems like, to everyone else as it is to me. I always loved it more than Madden. I played it much more than I played Madden. But, it was sort of my ritual every year almost. You get the NCAA in July, then you get Madden in August, and, you just, those were the two games I played more than any others by far. And I am just so excited about it. Now, I do have a bone to pick with them, though, because they've been releasing certain things over the last couple of weeks. And one thing they released their top 25 offenses, their top 25 defenses, and top 25 overall. Guess who was not on any of those lists? Yeah, that blew my mind. I couldn't believe that they totally left Tennessee out, that they think Memphis and all these, some of the names that I saw on these lists, and Tennessee's not even in your top 25 offenses? First of all, that's a no-brainer. Tennessee is going to be one of the 10, at worst, one of the top 10 offenses in the league next year. I would bet anything and everything I have on that. Tennessee is going to be, at worst, one of the top 10 offenses in the league next year. And you don't even have us in your top 25 offenses? You don't have us in your top 25 overall? What the hell? That really irked me quite a bit and reminded me of how irritating some of this stuff can be. But you know what? I guess we will just have to prove it to them over the first couple of weeks of the season. I'm going to be very interested to see what the player ratings are, how they have Nico rated. Dynasty mode is what I'm all about. Just like in Madden, I always play franchise, but I always love Dynasty mode on NCAA more. And now it's going to be revamped, and they've done so much, and it feels like this is more than just a repainted college version of Madden. It really feels like they've done a lot of work to make this its own game. And yeah, I'm super excited about it and super pissed at them for the complete, utter disrespect towards Tennessee football. I mean, we're going to be, going into the season, we're going to be ranked in the top 15. There's no doubt about that. So how do you figure that we're not even in the top 25 on any of your lists? That makes no sense whatsoever. But anyway, so we're getting closer to football season. The kids and I have been having a lot of fun this summer. I've told you guys we opened the pool. I opened the pool. And that's been a really big deal. It's been so much fun. It was a big part of my childhood, having the pool at Mimi's house, and I wanted to be able to share that with my kids. So now, we've been going there really every weekend and some days during the week as well. And been a ton of fun with that. I've been enjoying summer more than I usually do. House of the Dragon is also back on, and it's been really good. I didn't watch the new episode last night. I was going to save it for tonight when I don't have the kids. But these first two episodes have been really, really good, and it's had, honestly, much more of a Game of Thrones feel to it than the first season did. The first season of House of Dragon was really, it felt like just all prologue, or, just sort of a big, long preface to what was to come. And Game of Thrones was similar, but it didn't feel that way in the first season. They weren't fast-forwarding through these big jumps, taking these big leaps forward in time. It felt like when you were watching Game of Thrones that first season, this is just a great show. There's a lot happening. But then you find out that it was really sort of just setting up everything that was to come. But, that's how the whole first book was as well. The first season was based on the first book. And with House of the Dragon, there's not quite as much source material, although there is plenty. There aren't entire full novels, really long novels that you can have for each season. But yeah, anyway, so the first couple of episodes have just had that feel a lot more. There's a lot more, political intrigue. There's a lot more seeming, betrayal coming. There's a lot more. I don't know. It just had a lot more of that Game of Thrones feel to it than it did in season one. And I'm not saying that they should just totally try to, make it as much like that as they can. I'm glad that they're kind of doing their own thing. But it is, in that same universe, and I'm still hoping that they continue to build out this universe and that House of the Dragon continues to be super successful. I was really bummed to hear that they, I guess, have canceled the Jon Snow show idea, because I was more excited about it than anything, because it was going to be the first one that wasn't a prequel. It was going to be, because they've talked about doing all these spin-offs, and right now House of the Dragon is the first one. They're also going to do a Dunk and Egg one. They're also going to do a Sea Snake one. That has been something that's talked about and in the works. Also a Nymeria one with her 10,000 ships thing. But the one that I was the most excited about was the Jon Snow one, because it was going to be the only one to show events after the fact, after the events of the main series of Game of Thrones. And now it seems like they've canceled that. I don't know if it's permanently canceled or if it's just being shelved for now. But I think there are a lot of things that they can create an entire universe of that. And I hope that they do, because that was the plan and that was what they got fans all excited about. And now it seems like they've been changing their minds and going back and forth. And anyway, so this is not a Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. This is not a Ice and Fire podcast, so I don't know if half of you guys even know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that'll be that. So also that's part of, kind of what happens to me, I think, in the summer is I get more into my other interests, which are, a lot of fantasy literature and shows and stuff like that, because, sports aren't really going on, or sports that I care about aren't. So anyway, I hope everyone has had a fantastic June. I hope you have a wonderful July. I will be back, I'm sure, before too long. I'm going to try not to have not to let there be 2 or 3 weeks in between episodes anymore. But, if nothing happens, then I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I will be back soon. If nothing else, we'll be back on YouTube or on here sometime this weekend or next week. Hope everybody has a great 4th of July, and I'll talk to you again soon. All right. Love you. Bye.